You ready to do this, Steve?
Let's do it, Spence. Punch it, Chewie!
Welcome, super friends, to the Fortress of Nerditude podcast, a safe place to talk about all things in nerd and pop culture. I'm Spencer Stapleton, and my co-pilot, as always, is Steve Madura.
Where you been all my life?
Right here, big guy. We're two best friends that, despite being fathers and husbands, we just refuse to grow up. Thank you for joining us. This is episode 49. We release every Thursday morning. It's on iTunes, Google Music, and Stitcher, and we are coming from a location unknown, aka Steve's basement.
Booyah, baby. This is our live show, our first live show together in one room in an unknown bunker in my basement.
That's true. You know, it's kind of interesting, Steve. Like, we've done 48 other episodes, and in the 48 episodes we've done previous to this, it's always like through the magic of the internet and, you know, telecoms are connecting
Fiber
up and
optics.
Data packets are transmitting. And right now it's just you, me, laptops, microphones, devices, power cords, but it's just us.
Yeah. This is cool, man. This feels like we're actually in a recording studio.
Right.
That's not my basement.
Usually recording studios don't have so many Disney VHS movies on the shelves.
Look, they like the VHS. Man, you can't find these are in the vault, man. Winnie the Pooh, Peter Pan, 101 Dalmatians.
That's the good quality stuff, man.
Yeah, right.
High shelf Disney.
That's right. I still have the tracking thing. I've got to adjust on my VCR to get it to not have all the snow on the top of the screen.
Very nice. How does that typically work out for the kids? Do they care?
They don't care. They don't care.
VHS, DVD, digital, it doesn't matter to them.
As long as it's moving pictures on a screen, they're fine.
Right. That's cool.
Lowbrow.
Well, man, I'm like I said, I'm super excited because obviously I'm here. I'm in Chicago. I'm in your basement with you. And this is how it should be. I got to find a way that we can make this happen more often.
I would say, man, fly back and this radon-filled basement can be yours.
Nice. At least once a week while we record.
That's right. That's right. So you have technically been in the motherland for what, 3 days?
We arrived on Thursday and we're recording on Sunday night. So Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 4 days.
4 magical days.
And then we'll have a 5th day before we go home.
Yeah.
So 5 days. This is probably like the longest stretch I've had back in Illinois since I lived here.
Yeah. So, I mean, you were here last year, obviously. We've talked about that, but that was for the World Series, and you were here, what, 3 days?
That was 3 days.
Yeah.
I literally flew in, like, the Friday that the Cubs played Game 3 here, and, like, I got to the airport, picked up my rental car, grabbed you, and we went straight down to Wrigley Field that year.
So you feel like at least this time you've been able to enjoy, kind of let it sink in that you're here, kind of enjoy some of the sights, the sounds, the smells, the people. Hopefully not a lot of smells.
Yeah, we've definitely enjoyed it because I didn't come out alone this time. This time I brought Brita with me. We left the boys home at
for
home.
themselves.
Yeah, they're fine. We gave them a box of cookies and some water. I'm sure they're fine. No, in all seriousness, my in-laws are wonderful people, and they're taking care of the boys, and they did us a big favor by coming down. I mean, they had to drive like 12 hours to get down to our place.
Wow.
And then they're staying with us for about a full week. So
are they going to stay at all after you get back?
So we're gonna get back tomorrow night, and then the night after will be Halloween, and then they're gonna leave on Wednesday. So they'll leave like a day before this podcast actually goes live, but it'll be a full week they've been with us.
Yeah, I was gonna say, stay till the grandkids go trick or treat with the grandkids, man.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, you don't go home the day before Christmas.
Right.
No, you stay. Yeah, so they're gonna stay for Halloween, and they actually brought costumes, so they're gonna dress up and go out trick-or-treating with the kids as well, and with us.
Now wait, because you told us last week that the boys are going to be Mario and Luigi, respectively. So because you and Princess Peach couldn't make an arrival or a showing, your mother-in-law and brother and father-in-law going to take up the flag?
They're not going to do the Mario theme, which would be kind of funny if they did. My mother-in-law is going as Cruella de Vil, which is not typecasting. She's a sweet woman. And then her husband's going as Jasper, which I think is one of her henchmen.
Large nose.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, they're dressing up, and they typically get into Halloween, and they dress up and do all sorts of fun stuff back home. So
I got to tell you, it's something to be said about a grandmother or grandparent that can really get down to a child's level. When I was a kid, I don't know about you. Oh, I know your grandparents really well, actually. But, my grandparents, they were not the cuddly type. I spent a lot of time with them because my mother was a full-time nurse and my parents are divorced. So I spent a lot of time with my grandparents out on their property. It wasn't a farm, but it wasn't like they were dressing up on Halloween. They weren't going on roller coasters with me. They weren't going to, water parks. All the things that my in-laws do with my kids, I just have to believe it is going to just last a lifetime of just fond memories and stuff. And it sounds like your in-laws as well, just jumping right in with both feet and get into, kids love that. That's so important.
It makes a big impact on the kids. So like I remember spending lots of time with my dad's parents and the impact they had on us because they did a lot of stuff. Now that's not saying we didn't do a lot of stuff with my mom's side of the family because I got great memories of spending time, but they would do stuff with us and they would like take us. I remember going fishing with my grandma and grandpa when I was younger, or going camping in their fifth wheel and doing that sort of things. And like they were active and they were able, which I think is a first, big thing.
Right.
But they were able to do stuff and be a part of our lives and wanted to interact with us, which I think is also pretty crucial. And I see that with my mom and with Brida's parents. Like they want to interact and they want to play games and do stuff. And so we've seen pictures this week of the boys making Halloween cookies and doing projects, and then like having like a movie night with their grandfather that they call Boppy. And
also like the pillow that goes around a woman's waist after she's breastfeeding.
Right. I don't know how it got there, but anyway, so they're just, they're active, they're involved, and they were kind enough to come down and spend a week so Breda and I could get away for the first time in almost 5 years.
That's awesome. Well, before we move on to how these last 4 magical days have been, let the record show that no one makes a better grilled cheese sandwich than Maxine Stapleton. Boom.
Or at least she did, right?
She sure did.
Yeah.
My gosh.
So, so Steve, how has your week been?
It's been with you.
So it's been excellent.
Yeah, the week has been excellent. No, it was a lot of buildup. It was a lot of buildup for you coming, man. We, it's always busy at work, but let's not talk about work. We're not here to talk about work. It's been great, So obviously you flew out on Thursday night, So we cleaned like madmen. I filled my garage with all the crap that was in all of. No,
please. Your house always looks this clean. You guys keep a wonderful house.
We do.
Don't even.
But anyway, yeah. We obviously you came in, and I guess I'll just get right to it. We stayed up late Thursday night talking, just kind of having fun, reminiscing with our wives, and then on Friday morning, went downtown Chicago, hit Navy Pier. We went on the carousel, the Ferris wheel there, which is like I think one of the largest Ferris wheels in the world. We have some fantastic views of the city, which maybe we'll post some of those to our Facebook page for everybody to see. But had a great time. Got some Chicago-style dogs at a place where I used to work close to Wacker, and it was a little brisk that day, I believe, a little chilly.
It was chilly.
Yeah, it's come down a little bit since you got here, but. Visited the statue of Cap Streeter, which I think was a highlight of the trip so far.
I mean, the Cap and I are close.
Yeah, we do. We are going to post that. So literally, we were driving by while Spencer was frantically trying to find a parking spot, and we passed this. We had to do like three loops around the block because it's like a bunch of one ways down in the loop. And we passed this guy that looks literally like a full size Monopoly character. He's got like a top hat. He's got a little dog in his hand. He's a thimble on one hand. I'm like, who is that guy? And what do you have to do to get a bronze statue downtown Chicago? So as we parked the car in the, I found a spot here with a great parking spot for Navy Pier. We literally pop out of the parking garage and there's the statue. So Maybe we'll post that picture as well. But Cap Streeter was an eccentric neighbor of the community there in what's called now Streeterville. It was named after him, and I believe he had something to do with trolleys or trains.
Yeah.
I didn't really read the plan.
Right.
But anyway, fun. We had a great time downtown. Obviously, just hanging out. It was just Brita, Spencer, and myself. And then the next day, took my daughters to and Carter, my son, to a free skate at Highland Park, which is a neighboring town of ours. It was free skate for anybody in costume. So I went as Waldo, and people found me. Stood out a little bit with a red and white shirt and the beanie.
Especially all by yourself on the ice.
Exactly, with a bunch of children. And then later that night, I emceed our congregation's Halloween party, and had a great time. So,
How'd that go?
It was good, man. We had a bunch of games.
Did all your jokes hit? I mean, were they all funny? Were they all winners?
The jokes hit pretty well. I basically, it was like I had to find a costume last minute because I just didn't plan a costume. So I found some gold shimmery shirt that actually used to be Carrie's way back in the day, but she had it as a kind of a fun thing, not something she would wear normally, but it's totally flashy. And then I had this huge afro with a pick in it, and I had these big sunglasses, and then these pinstripe pants, and I went as Disco Stew from The Simpsons.
Nice.
So I did some moves and whatnot, and all the kids were like, "What is that comb in your hair?" I'm like, "It's the style, kids." It's this big purple pick, but it was great. It moved with me, kind of waffled back and forth. I did some Michael Jackson Thriller moves to Thriller up on the stage to kind of get things moving.
Yeah.
And we had a good time though. It was there was the classic games for kids after dinner, which we had a chili cook-off. Mine did not win, but it was a white chicken chili, tasty. There was pumpkin bowling, and there was donuts on a string and all that stuff. And then they go out and
did they bob for apples?
They did not bob for apples. I don't know who really bobs for apples. I mean, you spend all this time to paint your face, and you got a costume on, and you're going to dunk yourself in water.
Cap Streeter would. I'll tell you that.
Cap Streeter's the new mascot of the Fortress of Nerditude. Anyway, so great time, and then here we are tonight.
Yeah.
So aside from everything that I just covered with what we did, how's your week been?
So my week so far has been good. I'll now toss you the other side of the coin of the Fortress of Nerditude. How it went. So like you said, we came in Thursday. We immediately got right to our bags, right out the door, right to the car rental, and right up here. And it was bang, 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 super easy, super fast.
That was not a drive-by.
Well, it could have been, but it wasn't. We did get a fancy Chevrolet Impala that's got some leather seats and some dual climate air conditioning heating, which of course, we just shut off because part of the car was hot and part of it was cold, and it was creating a vortex in there. I was afraid we were going to get a little wind tunnel, maybe a tornado. High and low pressure cells were massing. It was weird.
That was, yeah.
But we got up here and we were able to hang out, like you said, Thursday night, and we stayed up late and talked and laughed. And then we got up Friday morning and, like you said, went into the city and did all the things you were saying, hung out, had a great time. And then after you left, we went over to the hotel we were going to stay at because we decided to stay in this city. And we stayed at the Palmer House, which is this really, really old hotel. And it's got these beautiful fresco paintings on this big, huge, grand lobby. And it's got this huge staircase. And imagine kind of this scene from The Untouchables.
Oh, yeah.
In the Grand Central Station, it kind of has that feel. I mean, it's not directly based off Grand Central Station, but it kind of has that feel. And the hotel room was nice. I mean, obviously they're little smaller rooms because it's an older property, but they've been kind of renovated to have all the amenities, and they were really nice. So we got checked in, and then we talked about taking a nap, to be honest, because we were tired and I didn't get a lot of sleep the night before because I got up early to see your kids off before they went to school Friday morning.
Right.
I wanted to see them and spend a little time with them. And so we were talking about getting a nap, and then Brita and I were just kind of talking well, we're going to want some snacks or some food or something because we weren't going to eat till after the evening's entertainment. And so we went over to a CVS and spent $14 and got some chips and some drinks and a little bit of candy and some breath mints and just whatever. And then came back, and then we got ready, and then the big evening's entertainment was we went and saw Hamilton, the musical.
That's awesome.
And we had pretty good tickets. We were like in the first dress circle, and we had a slightly obstructed view. Like we couldn't see the kind of very top level of the stage because they had kind of like a second story. But like really we only missed maybe like 35 to 40 seconds of anything in the musical. They hardly use that upstairs. Most of it's on the main stage. So it was fine. But that was a gift, a Christmas gift from my mom and Breda's parents, and then ourselves. And we've been listening to the music for Hamilton for like the last couple of weeks. Well, Breda has been for the last couple of weeks, myself for the last week. Well, we've been listening to it this entire weekend. We're still listening to it after the show. I got to tell you, Steve, I've seen a lot of musicals, and I've listened to a lot of. I've been in musicals. I've seen a lot of musicals. I've listened to a lot of music for musicals. I think Hamilton may be my favorite.
Really?
I really do, and the reason for that is that one is the music is it's all hip hop and R&B. I mean, this musical is a history lesson about the first Treasury Secretary of the United States, a man who was involved in the Revolutionary War, who was George Washington's like right hand man. A very interesting life, and it's like a big history lesson, but it's modern. It's all set to like rap and hip hop. Like there's a scene, this isn't a big spoiler, but there's a scene where Thomas Jefferson is debating Alexander Hamilton about like the state of the national debt and trying to create the first federal bank and try to consolidate all the debt so they can get a better credit rating and get more credit so they could trade on the world stage. And like, this actually happened. This is a real fact. Like this was an event that took place. Except in the musical, it's a rap battle. And so like each one has a microphone and George Washington's kind of like emceeing it, and like they go back and forth at each other like, two rappers.
Right.
And so it has a very modern feel. The music is really, 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 really good. It's well written. It's snappy. So the music is excellent. There's some big numbers, there's some smaller numbers, there's some kind of funny numbers. But then it's also the subject matter. Like this kind of subject matter really excites me and it entertains me. And it was done in such a very approachable, easy way. Like little kids could watch this thing and could understand what's going on. But it's not kiddie at all.
Right.
So it's really well done. It's just, I don't know, it may be my favorite of all time. And that's beating out some big things like Les Mis. Les Mis is phenomenal. Like I know a lot of people love Phantom, but like personally I don't care for Phantom much because I don't care for opera much.
Right.
And
a little too 80s for me, but yeah.
It's just opera all the way through. And I mean, it's not bad if that's your thing, it's just not my thing.
What's interesting is I mentioned to somebody because I knew you were going to this, and I've listened to the music as well, which I agree with you wholeheartedly. It's approachable. It is quick. I mean, the wit is it's just very sharply written. But I talked to somebody at the congregation Halloween party, and he mentioned that he knows some history teachers in the district that he teaches in, because he's a chemistry teacher, that actually use that music in their lessons. They use the teach almost like, I mean, you probably remember when we were in choir and they used, We Didn't Start the Fire by Billy Joel.
Right.
All those things. Right. Same type of thing. When you can make a subject matter that might be impenetrable on the surface seem very approachable and very palatable. I think that's what he did there. I think the music is amazing, and the fact that it is written in a rap, and that he, the syncopation and the rhyming throughout. There are only a few numbers that really don't have kind of that rhyming. It's impressive to say the least.
Right. So we saw it, we loved it. We had a great time at the show. Then afterwards, we went out to the oldest Italian restaurant in Chicago. It's called the Italian Village.
I didn't say Pizza Hut.
No, definitely not Pizza Hut. But it's like this cool place because it reminds you of like a Buca di Beppo in a way.
Uh-huh.
If you've been to a Buca di Beppo, you know what I'm talking about. Except it's not like, it doesn't feel like a chain.
Yeah,
it doesn't
it's
have
real.
that. It's real. Like this is like, it's almost like someone went to the Italian Village, ate there and went, I like this idea. I'm going to rip off everything that this place looks like and feels like and sounds like, and then, kind of corporatize it up a little bit and call it Buca di Beppo.
That's right.
And so we went to the Italian Village, had a great meal. I just went classic chicken parm, and it was fantastic. My wife got the chicken risotto, and she really loved that as well. And so it was great. Like, we finished having dinner like at 1 in the morning. Like, we got there like at 11 and, it took a little bit. We ordered, we didn't really have to wait, but we had this like really, really like late dinner. And I was like, wow, when was the last time we were out in the city having a late dinner? I mean, years and years, right? But no kids, so we figured why not? We slept into like, I think 10 in the morning, 11 in the morning, something like that. It was crazy. Like, we originally were talking about getting up in the morning and doing like the breakfast buffet and then getting on the road because we were going to kind of do the next leg of our trip the next day. No, we slept in. We took advantage. I'm not ashamed to say that.
It's a vacation, man.
So then we went and we actually drove back home to Sycamore, Illinois, which is our hometown where we actually grew up together. And that's, where we met each other many moons ago. And we went there, and it's Pumpkin Fest weekend, which is the big, kind of the big festival in our hometown. And I know lots of little hometowns in the Midwest and all over the place have some sort of thing like Peach Days, in Brigham City, Utah, I know has that, or, they'll have like Tractor Days or whatever.
Right.
But in Sycamore, Illinois, it's Pumpkin Fest.
Right.
And we got to the hometown, and of course, everything looks different. There's all these new houses and buildings and stores where it used to be just nothing but fields, cornfields or empty fields.
Yeah.
We drove past my 2 old houses I grew up in, and it was kind of nice seeing them, but at the same time, it's, I looked at those homes, I'm like, yeah, this is where I lived for many years, and I had so many good memories here, but
it's different.
It's different because, I can't go in it, and like the yard looks different, and, new things and bushes and plants and flowers have been planted, and it just looks different. And it felt smaller somehow.
Yeah.
I think a big part of that is when we went by the Maplewood house, like they've planted all this stuff in the front yard. And when we lived there, the front yard was just the big 2 oak trees and nothing else. And so it felt big and open. And this felt very it made it feel very small, which was kind of weird.
Yeah.
But then again, I was also a kid when I lived there. So everything felt probably larger than it really was.
You were into your teenage years. It wasn't like you were a toddler. I mean,
but I'm an adult. I'm an adult now, though.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like, spatial reasoning, I was probably the same, but just things always looked and appeared bigger because I still wasn't an adult, and now I've been an adult for a few years.
Yeah.
And you look around, and you're like, this is only maybe like a half an acre of land, and compared to some of the homes in the neighborhood where they're are down the street and are sitting on like 3 or 4 acres of land, start looking at stuff like that.
I've done the same thing as well when I've gone back, just kind of gone through some of my, my old boyhood home and whatnot. And it's always interesting to me when I think about that because I think, okay, some other family is there. Right. Some other person is making memories in this house. And there were definitely people that came before me and made memories here as well. And you think about that a place, whether it's a home or whether that home gets demolished, whether that piece of ground, it's obviously been around since the world has. And think of what the history that's happened there. I think it's always kind of fascinating to see, like, this is special to me and to a lot of other people.
Right.
And so it's kind of cool.
Yes, I'm with you. So we saw the houses, and of course I'm trying to show Brita, like, the elementary school and the junior high and the high school I went to, and did it. But like, I was trying also not to like
bore her to death
and like languish on things. So like, I was pointing out like your childhood home because she knows you. So like saying like, this is where Steve lived and this is where I lived in proximity. And she's like, oh, you guys were real close. I'm like, we were real close. And here's where Andy Barnes lived, and he was just right around the corner from me and was still on Center Cross. And she's like, you guys were all really close. I'm like, yeah, all of us that went to the same elementary school, and like literally we're within 2 minutes of each other, like by any form of travel. I mean, just small kind of tight knit area, and we went through the downtown, and of course everything's on display, and there's the pumpkin flags everywhere, and people have vendors are out, and I bought a Pumpkin Fest T-shirt from a old I don't want to say old. Because she's a sweetheart, and I'm not trying to make her sound like she's really old, but an old friend, Terry Ann, who I went to school with, and she was selling these T-shirts supporting the dance troupe, like this little dance studio right downtown that her daughter is a part of.
Is it Leffelman?
Terry Ann Leffelman. I'm gonna butcher, what her last name is now, because every
Smith.
right, Jones, whatever. No, but every girl pretty much, for the most part that I knew, has some sort of like different last name now, which I'll get into in a minute. But that is a little bit of a challenge. But I saw her, it's like, yeah, totally. I'm gonna buy a T-shirt and help support a former classmate of mine, who's got a daughter, and they're trying to support their dance troupe, and the Kiwanis Club and the Lions Club are out there selling, pork chop sandwiches and hot chocolate. And I mean, just, you could smell it in the air. And
Apple
it was,
cinnamon.
right.
Donuts.
We went down to Ellison's Bakery and got a cream-filled Long John, and then got an apple cider donut, which are classics of, our youth growing up, and at Pumpkin Fest. And we looked at all the pumpkins on the courthouse lawn, and we looked at that, and there was a lot of like really cool, like creative pumpkins. And I started thinking, man, I really sucked when I did pumpkins as a kid, because like I would just kind of like carve something, and like it wasn't even like a good looking like scary face pumpkin, or what, like the standard like triangle eyes and kind of seesaw teeth or whatever.
Yeah,
I couldn't even get that right, and these kids were like painting their pumpkins to look like Calvin and Hobbes and E.T. and Elliot, and like the bicycle in the little basket, and all these like cool, like really fun stuff. And I was just like, yeah, I cut out some mismatched eyes and whatever, and I still put it out there on the courthouse lawn and tried to enter it. I mean, what was I thinking as a kid?
I did one where it was a tissue box. So it was like I wrote Kleenex on the side, and then I cut a hole in the top, and my grandpa helped me put like tissues coming out the top, and I actually won an award for it.
Really?
Oh yes. It's the only award I've ever won in anything I've ever done, but I still have it upstairs.
Nice.
Above my bed right now.
Right. You've got like little lights pointing at it, so you can, it's illuminated.
There's some candles underneath of it.
Yeah. So anyway, we did that, and then that evening, Saturday evening, was my 20-year high school reunion. And I got to go and see old friends and reconnect with old friends that I haven't seen in 20 years. People also that I wasn't like super close with in high school, but I've kind of, kept somewhat loosely in contact with on Facebook for the last, decade or more, and get to see some of them and, talk to some people. And it was just really kind of cool. Like everyone seemed really relaxed, and like, how like when you were in high school, there was like groups like these, these people knew these people from whatever. And so they kind of had their own little group and their friends and whatnot, and like kind of like cliques and like little whatever groups. We had a really good showing. Like I'd say probably at least like maybe 50 students showed up. It was like at least a quarter of our graduating class, which I figure has got to be like a really good showing, because a lot of people can't come or don't live here anymore or whatever. Yeah. But like everyone I talked to was just like really nice, and like, oh yeah, hey, I remember you, da da da. Like there was some people that came up, and like specifically I remember a kid named Larry Harris, and I don't really remember Larry Harris from school at all. Like I remember the name, like once I'd heard it again, but like I don't really remember. Like I didn't just run in many circles with Larry Harris that I can recall. Then again, I'm getting older and my memory is going. But he was like, "Hey, Spencer." I was like, "Hey," and I had to like look at his name tag. I mean, I felt bad, but I mean, I did. And he's like, "How's it going?" And and just kind of like talked to me for just a minute or two. It was just like nice. It was like, yeah, I hadn't seen him in a long time, and had a chance to talk to him and other people. And then I ran into Tim Dewey. And Tim and I weren't very close in high school, but we'd shared some classes, and I came in and he saw me and he was like, "Hey, Spencer, how's it going?" And he knew me on sight. And once again, I had to check a name badge, and I was like, I'm going to do this way too often tonight. I feel bad. But then I realized other people were going to have to do that too. And I don't look like I used to in high school when I was 18. I don't have any hair anymore. I mean, no hair. And I used to have a full head of hair at 18. I mean, it was slightly receding, but I mean,
right.
It was there. So I figure, okay, I'm going to give myself a pass on this because other people are going to do the same thing.
Yeah.
But I had a chance to talk to him and his wife Celestra and meet them. And they'd been recently married for a number of years, and come to find out that he had joined our church about 5 years ago, and knows a lot of the same people that I grew up in the church here locally, and knows a lot of the same people now. And so like we were able to kind of talk about some shared acquaintances and friendships that we had, and it was kind of nice. Like we'd even though we didn't have a lot of time spent together in high school, we have more similarities now. And so I was able to have just a real fun evening, talking with them and talking with everyone. But like at the end of the evening, we ended up, my wife and I, Breed and I, ended up going and getting dinner with Tim Dewey and his wife Celestra after the fact. And so like we closed down a Buffalo Wild Wings at 1 a.m, just talking the night away. And then of course, like I went back to the hotel and we were planning on going to sleep, and I ran into Litzy Hamilton, which I didn't actually get a chance to talk to at the event. But then we talked like in the lobby of a Holiday Inn Express for like another hour. So we ended up going to bed like at 3 a.m. and just, like super late. And then we got up this morning and had some breakfast. And then we drove out to go see my dad's grave, because he's not there anymore. But my dad's body, is in the cemetery in the hometown here. And we went to go see his grave, and this was like maybe the second time I've been out there since we buried my dad 15 years ago. And I'm so ashamed to say this, but it took us 45 minutes and 3 phone calls.
They had to phone a friend, didn't she?
I had to phone 3 friends. I called my mother and asked my mother where dad was buried, and her directions were, well, I remember it kind of was over to the right and it was near a tree. I was like, yeah, that's about what I have in my memory too, Mom. I'm like, but I've been walking for half an hour. And so we talked for a little bit and she couldn't remember. And she's like, well, when you do find it, take some notes and maybe sketch down on a piece of paper some directions so, your brothers and sisters and I can find it later when we, make it out there next.
This is national treasure, my
right.
gosh.
And so then I messaged your mom, which, I forgot to tell you, like I spent 2.5 hours with your mom the day before.
Well, how is she?
She is wonderful. She wants you to write her.
Tell her I need some money.
Or call. Yeah. You're going to have to make a personal appearance if you want some cash, son. But I did get to see your mom for like 2.5 hours.
That's awesome. That is awesome. It's funny because I know I mentioned to my mom and my dad that you were coming into town. And of course, my mom was gracious and said, I understand he's going to be busy. This is his 20th reunion. He's not obviously coming in to see us, but if he can make it any possible way, we'd love to see him for half an hour. She said, I'll even cook for him. I'm like, what are you saying? Like, you don't need to lure him into food. Like,
you won't do this for me, Mom.
Exactly. Like, I'll lead a trail of breadcrumbs to my oven and then I'll kick him in.
Right.
I'm like, Mom, you're not coming across really well here. This is not good for you.
Let me tell you, I love your mom like she's my own mother,
yeah.
and have for many, many, many years. So I called her up and I said, hey, we're done doing kind of the downtown pumpkin fest. We've got some time. Are you around? And she's like, yeah, I'm just sitting here at the house. I think she actually was watching Stranger Things. So she had to stop binge watching Stranger Things. But we came over and we got to hang out with your mom and with Mike and with Michaela. And we were there for about 2.5 hours. And like, I could have sat there the rest of the day and just talked with your mom and Mike and Michaela and caught up with them and spent more time. I just love them dearly.
Yeah.
And I did have other things. I mean, we did have the reunion that night. And
wait, was it that, or was it Brita got attacked by my sister's bird?
Now the bird did attack Brita, and then it kind of came after me once too, and like jumped on my chest, was going towards my face, and I kept thinking, this bird's gonna stop, right? And then Michaela comes and gets the bird, and then I realized like Michaela's opening her mouth, and like the bird's like trying to like eat out of her mouth. I'm like, oh, that bird wasn't gonna stop. That bird was gonna come, like it would climb down my gullet and get into my tummy. I mean,
does she have like a mother baby relationship that it eats like out of her mouth?
Something like the bird jumped in her hair and would like use her hair as like a nest. It was like climbing around in the back of her hair behind her neck. No wonder it
jumped off yours. It was like there's no
right.
There's no food for thought here.
Right. So anyway, yeah. So I called my mom half an hour. Right. We'll jump back to where I was. Called my mom for half an hour. I texted your mom. And she texted me back and said, hey, I'm in a meeting right now. Call Mike. And so I called Mike, and Mike was giving me kind of instructions on where to go. And Brita, at the same time I was talking to Mike, Brita found my dad's gravestone. Like, I just hate to admit, like, it took me 45 minutes, and it took me 3 phone calls to figure out where my dad was buried. And it turned out I was just one, like, there's sections of the the cemetery, and I was in the right area, but I was just one section off, because I remember when we buried him, like, we kind of pulled up, parked, and then, like, we pulled the casket out and then walked to the right. So in my mind, I keep thinking right. That means we're in the right section, to the furthest to the right. And it's actually like in the center section, but you kind of park on this like little road that runs to the left of the center section. So you have to walk to your right to get into the middle of the center section.
Yep.
And he's buried probably about like 10, 12 feet north of a tree there. And he always wanted to be buried near a tree. So finally, we finally found it. And I kind of cleaned it up a little bit. I mean, there was some leaves and a little bit of dirt. And so I just kind of cleaned it up a little bit and took a couple moments. Took a couple moments there. And I had this moment. And I didn't know if I was going to share this or not because it sounds really bad. But if my dad were here, my dad would appreciate this kind of humor. This is the kind of guy he was. Irreverent humor that, like, finding humor in places that you probably shouldn't.
Pushes the envelope
a little bit. Like, my dad would find that funny, so I'm going to share it anyway. I'm there. You know, it's been 45 minutes. I've been kind of out in the cold. It's like 40 degrees. And we finally just get there, and I'm looking down at my dad's gravestone, and I realize I have to pee. And so I start, for just a split second, this thought like flitted through my mind. Would it be bad if I peed on my dad's grave? What? just for a second. For like a split second. I was like, would it be bad if I peed on my dad's grave?
And what was the resounding answer?
Well, I asked Brita.
You had to go to an outside source? You didn't have to call my mom or yours? Or...
Well, because, here's the thing.
My thought.
Because I would realize that, I would think it was funny just to say that I'd done that for a split second, because like sometimes, listen, there's a line most people have for the sake of comedy. I usually go barreling past that line with abandon and get to the, ooh, too far. And I understand that I'm like way into that territory right now, but it was just a moment. And I looked at Brita and said, would it be bad if I just peed right here? And she's like, on your dad's grave? And I was like, so that's a yes?
He'd want me to do it rather on him than on somebody else. I mean, how rude.
I was like, maybe I'll just go pee on the tree. Anyway, I didn't do it. I mean, obviously, I went and I found a gas station after we left. But it was just that like moment where I had that like just that thought that I was like, this is really irreverent humor. Like this is just like the ridiculousness of that thought was so silly. Like, if the roles had been reversed or someone else were there and I told my dad that I was thinking about doing that, like, he would have laughed and called me an idiot or a bonehead and thought that it was funny for a split second and said, no, you can't do that, which,
right.
Is the correct thing. And obviously I didn't do it, but it was just that moment, like that thought just kind of like flitted through my brain. And I was like, would it be wrong if I peed on my dad's grave? I can
just imagine like this scene that like from the camera's angle of like, you from the side, and then suddenly it kind of like panning a little bit, yeah, and revealing like 3 gravestones down. There's like a widow kneeling by her husband. She's like,
right, yeah,
sick monkey.
Yeah. Anyway, so we did, after 45 minutes of searching, we found Dad's grave, and we did have a little more, Brita and myself and I had a little more serious conversation. I just kind of talked about my dad for a few minutes, and then, and then had to get back kind of on the road. And then we came back here to visit you, and I made good on a promise that you and I discussed, and I made you a Stapleton Chicago deep dish stuffed pizza.
Oh, yes. Did you ever?
And in your opinion, how was it?
The crust was flaky and buttery. And honestly, I told Spence I probably would not be able to tell the difference if you literally just cut the crust off and gave me like the back part of the crust, the handle, as it were. I probably would not be able to tell a difference between that crust and Giordano's, which is my favorite, which is my personal favorite. I know there's Lumalnati's and there's Uno's and there's Gino's East, but I'm a Giordano's guy. So I thought it was fantastic. I only could have one piece because it was so much pizza. My piece alone probably weighed literally half a pound.
Yeah.
It was a lot of cheese. We had pepperoni, sausage, peppers. The sauce was kicking.
Black olives.
And black olives. So it was really good though. It was awesome. And Spence graced me with a housewarming gift Not that we purchased the house recently, but with a pan that arrived on Saturday at Amazon because I called him on the way to the airport and I'm like, I'm so glad you're coming. This is on Thursday. I'm so glad you're coming. It's going to be great. Hey, you brought the pan, or we're making pizza, right? He's like, you told me not to.
Right.
And so he had to basically call in, phone a friend, and that friend was Amazon.
Yep.
And so now I'm the proud owner of a pan. So if anybody wants to come over for some pizza, you can be my guinea pig.
Do you really want to start making promises about more food? Because we're going to talk about
Do we
that.
have any takers? Okay, we'll see.
Yeah, we got a few. So
All right.
Anyway, that's been my week. I know we're kind of going on long, but it's been a big weekend for me. It's the first time back to my hometown in literally like almost 20 years.
Yeah.
And got to see old friends and make some new friends. And get caught up with some family and just a lot of fun stuff. And then of course Hamilton happened also.
Yeah.
So,
Well, hopefully you appreciate your soldiers' welcome.
right.
So,
Right.
Well, very cool. We are, of course, happy to have you. And I know that we waxed a little long, but like Spencer said, a big week this week, both for he and I. And it's just good to be back, man. There's something about and I'm sure our listeners out there have those people in their lives. Whether you talk to them often on a podcast every week or if you talk to them once a year, but that once you get back together with them, it's like no time has passed at all. And I loved that. I told that to my wife when we got back, when I got back on Friday night, and just said, she said, what did you guys do? I said, well, we just kind of walked around, but it was just so great being together. And whether we were just chatting while we were walking or laughing about, hanging off of a anchor. We'll show you that picture too.
Or us at that theater doing a little street preaching.
Yeah, we walked down Navy Pier, and all the way at the end of the pier, there's a huge auditorium which did have signs that said closed for a private event. Yeah, we walked past those. We pushed envelopes all over the place, and we got up on stage in this huge auditorium, and we started doing what we do best, which is preaching the good word. Right. And it got a little heated. So
we could do some street preaching if we needed to.
I could have made some sweet money as a preacher had I not, gone into the lay ministry.
Right.
Anyway, but a great week was had by all, and we hope that your week, listeners, was a good week as well. Make every week a good week, man, because it's right. The last week of the rest of your life. So, one little small correction, just so Peter Christensen or some other movie buff doesn't correct us. The Untouchables movie was not actually in Grand Central Station. It was in Union Station, which is in Chicago.
Union Station.
And just a few blocks away from where we were. And actually, I took Union Station Metro back home at the end of the day. So, anyway, let's get on to maybe some commentary. I think what was our question of the week last week?
Well, you're just jumping right ahead, right?
I'm just going, man. The train has left the station.
And we got to get to what we normally do. Rebel intelligence, Steve.
Oh, right.
You forgot about that?
No,
I thought it's your favorite part of the podcast and mine.
I just go along with what you say.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
I always have to let you know, many Bothans died to bring us this information.
Rest in peace, you Bothans.
All right, Steve. Rebel intelligence. So some stuff's happened, and I want to give you first crack at it. What do you have for us?
So this is an oldie but a goodie. So you guys probably remember, maybe some of you don't, based on age, a show called Quantum Leap.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, great show. Very, I guess, cutting edge at the time. By Donald Bellisario. He had written and created Quantum Leap, which was basically this man named Sam, Dr. Sam Beckett.
Dr. Sam Beckett.
And he basically was kind of an interstellar nomad who would be shifted, from time to time to different times, different dimensions, different points in time. And he would never know from one point to another, but he would do these quantum leaps. That's obviously the nexus of the show's title. And but it ran for a number of seasons. I'm trying to look on this article.
Did it run for like 7 or 8 seasons, something like that?
It was 8 seasons, and it was fairly well. It had a good following. But it ended kind of infamously with one of the most tragic yet unintentionally funny ways, which basically was an end title card that basically just said, Dr. Sam Beckett never returned home.
Right.
That's how it ended. So,
you remember the show though? Like they were trying to do some of the time travel, and like something went wrong with it.
right.
And so like
right.
what happened was, as I recall, because this has been a long time since I've seen the show, but like he would like jump into someone else's life, and he was hoping that if he did like the right things
That's
and
right.
like helped fix whatever, that then the next time that the system would kind of like, shift and like send him to another time, he was always hoping that that would be the next time that he actually got sent back home to his time period, and that everything would be over and like whatever would be resolved. But like obviously this is a television show and they want to continue the show and make money, so he never made it back.
That's right. That's right. So at LA Comic-Con this recently, the director kind of hinted to the fact that he has actually written kind of a quantum leap feature. So a movie,
Like a movie?
Yeah, a movie that's gonna take us to the next level. He said, I don't know what's gonna happen with it, but I did write it, and so it's out there, and I think there's always been talk or rumors that something may happen related to a quantum leap movie, but no one's gotten really too excited about it. But this, I think, is a much bigger step towards some of that becoming reality. Anyway,
that show went off in the air in like what, the late 80s, early 90s.
Oh, this is I think.
Is there a big demand for Quantum Leap the movie?
Well, if there's reboots of Karate Kid and other such things, then
I guess you're right.
If there's a buck to be made, then there's a guy, a schmo to write it.
We did get Fuller House on Netflix,
And that's still going.
so okay.
Yeah. So, what do you got?
Would you go see a Quantum Leap movie?
No.
What if it still starred Scott Bakula, the original guy who played Dr. Samuel Beckett?
No. Probably not. I was never.
What if it comes to Netflix and it's free and
I'll
you
see
got
it.
2 hours?
I'll see it. I'll watch it. What do you want from me? No, it was funny. About a week ago, I flipped on some TV show, and the same actor, who I forget his name,
Scott Bakula, the main guy?
That's right, yeah. He's actually in some kind of CSI style show, almost like MacGyver is, and salt and pepper hair and all the rest. And so I was like, wait a minute, that's the guy from Quantum Leap.
Nice.
So he's still out there. He's still making
Right.
making a name for himself, making some money.
Okay, so here's what I got for you. You know how Thor Ragnarok is getting ready to come out.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's like right around the corner.
Yeah.
It's actually been released internationally already in a couple markets. There's a character in the first 2 movies. Her name is Lady Sif. She's like the only female character that's kind of like in Thor's like band of like friends from Asgard. Mm-hmm. And I guess it's been officially confirmed now, because the movie's opened in international markets, that she is not in the newest movie. And a lot of people were wondering why. And well, the reason is that the actress whose name is Jamie Alexander is like the lead character in the TV show Blind Spot on NBC, which is like an active TV show. And apparently the Thor Ragnarok movie didn't let her know until pretty late in the game that they wanted her. And unfortunately they couldn't iron out the details to get her time off from her television show, which is a primetime TV show right now. So she's, a working actress, and obviously. And so they just couldn't work it out. But like people were always wondering, like, was there a reason? Was there something going on? And basically, she basically spilled the beans and just said like, hey, I'm not in it. I wanted to be in it. I'm bummed that I'm not in it, but we just couldn't work out the details. And like that seems to be like a pretty reoccurring thing that happens in Hollywood with a movie that ends up, getting a sequel or a threequel or a quadquel or whatever, you're going to call the Indiana Jones franchise, because I think we're into like, I think we're going to be into like the 5th and 6th movie at some point.
Right.
But sometimes actors and actresses just are tied down to other properties and doing other things, and they're busy.
Yeah,
they can't get away.
I mean, not only in Hollywood. I mean, Howard actually wanted me on tonight, and I said, you know what, Howard, I got another gig, but I'll be on your show next week.
Right.
So, interesting. Very interesting. Well, it's. I guess it's a good thing. It's good to be busy, as everyone says.
Right.
Good to be busy, especially as a working actor or an actress in Hollywood. So, what I wanted to talk about was kind of a funny thing. So, when I say Batman v Superman, first word that comes to your mind, go.
Zack Snyder's Murderverse.
That's a lot of not just one word, but that's fine. So I would say negative feelings.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't great. It was poorly received.
Yeah. So the director for Guardians of the Galaxy has a simple message for you and fans.
We're talking James Gunn, that director?
James Gunn.
Okay.
Yeah. And basically just says, why can't we all get along? He's like, you know what? He's like, say what you will about the Dawn of Justice, Batman v Superman, Zack Snyder's, controversial, dark murderverse, as you like to call it. But he said every time James Gunn mentions anything about DC, he's like, it just, his whole Twitter feed blows up with negative commentary and becomes a screaming match. And he's like, guys, do you realize that whether you're Marvel or whether you're DC, you really are kind of from the same realm? I mean, you are kind of much of the same types of people. He's like, you guys should just get along. Stop engaging in this way. It's so much. I know everybody likes something to talk about, right? Whether you're into sports and you're like, man, that freaking Tim Tebow, or whether you're into whatever the case may be. That Amadeus, man, he sucked. I don't know, whatever.
You know what that reminds me of? It reminds me of when William Shatner went on SNL, like back in the maybe late 70s, and he was lampooning the like Star Trek conventions like way back in the day, and they were like, Spock this and that, and there's like all these nerds, and maybe it's even a little later because I think John Lovitz was there, and William Shatner's like, hey guys, get a life. Like, it's a TV show, we're just actors, and let it go. And then like the nerds in the audience were like, what is he talking about? And like, no, this isn't Picard, or this isn't Captain Kirk we know. Anyway, it was just kind of funny because like that whole idea, right? I think that's what James Gunn's kind of saying. Like,
yeah,
get a life. Like, we're all having fun. We're making movies and we're
about superheroes.
Making movies about superheroes, about people who don't really exist in real life.
That's right.
Let's just have fun with this and let's enjoy it. And if you don't like it, just remember the golden rule, maybe.
Yeah, it's literally like my kids who will watch a show and be like, I'm that person. And then they'll be like, no, I'm that person. And they'll start getting this huge fight. And I'm like, guys, do you realize what you're talking about? Like, you are neither of those people. You are Addison and you are Alana.
Right.
Anyway, you just gotta, we gotta grow up. We gotta just realize this is all for entertainment. Entertainment. So just be entertained. All right, get along.
The last thing I have for you, this is kind of interesting. Do you remember the TV show Chuck?
Do I?
The guy that was kind of like the faux Best Buy, like nerd squad,
yeah,
kind of
absolutely,
whatever. Anyway,
it's kind of a sleeper show. It's pretty funny, actually.
It was really funny. But Zachary Levi, the guy that plays the title role of Chuck, he's actually just been cast for a DC movie called Shazam. Now, I didn't know much about Shazam because it's definitely not a comic book that I ever read.
Not a main tentpole.
Right, but basically it's about a young boy named Billy Batson who can turn into an adult superhero by saying the word Shazam. And then he like transforms into an adult and he's a superhero. And apparently like the Shazam comics have been around since like the 1930s, but in the 1970s they became part of DC. And unbeknownst to me, but probably to a lot of people, Shazam's nemesis is Black Adam. And Black Adam, there's going to be a Black Adam movie, and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is going to be that character, and we've talked about that already. So apparently, though, DC is saying there's going to be a Black Adam movie with The Rock, and then there's going to be a Shazam movie with Zachary Levi, and then they're going to end up in a movie together where they're going at it, and they're opposing each other. So apparently we're going to get a Shazam, a Black Adam, and a Shazam versus Black Adam Dawn of Justice movie, or whatever they're going to call it.
Oh, I don't know, man. We've talked about it a lot, but I think some of these, I feel like we're going like third tier now. Like,
right.
I say Shazam, and then I become a superhero. What do you do? I don't know, but I say Shazam. Like,
right. Here's the thing.
I don't know.
I think Marvel could do a third tier character, because they've got a formula that they can follow and it's still going to be good. I think DC needs to work on its main tier. I mean, Wonder Woman was great.
Yeah,
but
don't branch out so quick.
They've got to get Batman and they got to get Superman. You get a couple of those stellar movies under your belt, then you can branch out and you could do a solo movie on the Joker or the Riddler or Lex Luthor. They're kind of in those worlds, but not maybe necessarily. But Shazam feels like a bit of a stretch. Get a good movie based off of The Flash, or I was gonna say Aquaman, but I mean, we all know that's that's just me being silly. I mean, I know there is an Aquaman coming out, but like,
yeah, it just seems a little far out of the branch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, Steve, I know you don't have a Nintendo Switch yet, and I was intending to bring mine out and to try to sell your kids on the virtue of it so that they would, demand one for Christmas.
Thank you, jerk.
But I didn't because I knew I wasn't going to have time to play.
And I'd like to stay employed, thank you.
Right. But the new Super Mario Odyssey, the big Mario title for the Nintendo Switch, dropped this last weekend while I was actually out here. And apparently, from everything I'm seeing and reading online, this thing is looking like it's going to probably be up in the pantheon of like the best Mario games of all time. That's just what I'm hearing.
Yeah. I've watched some of the gameplay. I know we've talked about it a little bit before, but it really looks so exploratory. I mean, you can do anything. I mean, I love some of the features of, and I'm not sure what they're classifying this as, but how you can transfer Mario into, like, I know there's a bunch of power lines as you jump from building to building. You can basically just turn into energy and just electricity and just zap through the power lines. You have the kind of the cap throw and some different, I think, playability you haven't had before.
Right.
And some different moves that you can do there. But just the gameplay alone, it looks fantastic. I mean, it just looks like everything is very manipulable.
I'm excited. I mean, I don't have it yet. I didn't pre-order it because I knew it was going to then arrive like while we were gone. But it is going to be something I'm going to pick up shortly after we get back, probably sometime into next week, and get on it. It's getting reviews like 9. Usually video games get reviewed on a 1 to 10 scale, and it's got like a 9.5 on Polygon. It's getting like a 10, I think, on IGN. I mean, it's just getting incredible scores. Everyone's loving it. I'm not hearing any negativity about it yet, so that says something big. And listen, for Nintendo, they've got a couple properties that everyone knows. Mario, Zelda, Mario Kart, Smash Brothers, some things like that. So you've got to come strong with the Super Mario game. I mean, you got to bring your A+ game. And it sounds like they have.
I mean, you think for a 40-year-old character to think that he has maintained his relatability. I mean, he is the most beloved character in all of video gamedom.
Right. He's been there since the beginning.
Little Italian plumber. Who'da thunk?
Right. Good on him. It's me, Mario.
It's me, Mario.
Well, that's all I got for Rebel Intelligence. What about you? You done?
Cool. I am spent.
Awesome. Steve, last week we talked kind of a build-up, a lead-up to Halloween, and we talked about Halloween music and, how there's not a great selection of Halloween music. We also talked about costumes, Halloween costumes, and we asked our super friends what kind of Halloween costumes they've worn, and specifically like embarrassing ones, and if they'd be willing to send pictures and tell us them. And I've got some responses, so I thought we'll read those for you. And I'm going to start with email.
Oh, do tell.
Our good friend Peter Christensen says, "Dear nerds, rapid fire. Renewing your favorite STD after 6 episodes is a consequence of the competitive media buying landscape right now. Netflix spends $7 billion a year. Apple is entering in at $1 billion a year. Amazon spends a ton in addition to HBO, Showtime, etc. Also, Netflix is known to sign shows for 2 seasons at a time before they've aired," which is true. He says, "Billy Zabka, a.k.a. Johnny the Karate Kid, had several great moments of himself on the TV show How I Met Your Mother," which is true. I love that show, and I do remember him on there. He also said, "Last Action Hero may be a victim of Slick Willy, but it had an awesome soundtrack." And the funny thing is, I can't think of the soundtrack to Last Action Hero.
Maybe it was exactly like Guardians of the Galaxy, but just the movie was not as cool, so it didn't get much play.
Maybe. Now I'm going to have to go back and look.
Right?
Right. I'm just going to look. Anyway, he says that he's a fan of Snickerdoodles, and his address is beep 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 beep
2701 Federal Way Drive. No,
right.
It was at Boulevard.
Addison and Clark.
Yeah,
That's
right.
Wrigley Field. Yeah. Anyway, Steve,
Illinois Nazis.
he did send his address. I'm gonna go back if he has reviewed us on iTunes, which I'm pretty sure he already has. That means more cookies you're having to bake, sir.
Peter Christensen, you devil, you.
Anyway, he says, I've attached a picture of our family's costumes this year. I'm a basketball hoop. My wife is a unicorn. My oldest is a mishmash of Harry Potter and Star Wars. Her friend is the communications officer from the original Star Trek, who had the good sense not to go the full Uhura. My middle is Wonder Woman, and my youngest is Pete the Cat. He says, Happy Halloween. And he did send us the picture, which I did show you prior to starting the podcast.
That's right. And he is a great basketball hoop with the blow-up basketball. There were a lot of unicorns this year thus far. I mean, lots of unicorns.
I have seen a lot of unicorns out
A lot of
lately.
bronies as well, I think is what they're called.
Bronies.
A lot of bronies out
Yes. There have been a few bronies that I've seen.
Those are more frightening than anything else you'll see out there, folks.
Peter, thank you for sending the picture. Here's the deal. I'm not going to post people's pictures that they send because I understand they could be embarrassing for some people if you send that variety. If you're okay with me posting your pictures that you sent in after you hear the podcast, you guys can send me a message and I will post those on our social media. But I do appreciate the picture. It was a lot of fun. Thank you again, Peter.
And he said Oreos were his favorite, right? You just send those right off.
He said Snickerdoodles. Snickerdoodles. I know. Oreos. Right. I know, Steve, you got to bake, man. You made a promise.
I got my apron on.
Jumping over to Facebook, our friend Caleb Albers.
Caleb
says, didn't mean to miss last week's question, but definitely Black Panther. That's what he was excited out of the 3 trailers that released that week.
Really?
He says, if they stick to the comic book versions of it, this movie has the potential to be another great in the Marvel trilogy. Also, you guys failed to mention the Justice League on your list of movies. That's because a trailer didn't release that week. We just talked about trailers from that week.
Right.
Because there's a lot of movies that are coming up with trailers. He says, as far as the question, I have 2 costumes that I remember being super embarrassed by. The first one was when I was super young. My mom made me dress up as a giant pumpkin. Even though I was young, I knew that wasn't the least bit cool. The second one was, I think, tops my pumpkin incident, is when my mom and aunt decided that it'd be, quote, cool for my brothers and my cousin to go as the Wizard of Oz team, and I went as the Tin Man, which would have been okay, but I had to go to school in that costume in 9th grade. And me being the oldest of my brothers, I was in a completely different part of the school, so my costume made very little sense. It was also super small on me. I was just an overall awkward costume. I have a picture somewhere of this, but there's no way I'm going to go public with it. Along with this, I think Halloween music has gotten a little better ever since the release of Nightmare Before Christmas, and we did fail to remember Nightmare Before Christmas has
Tim Burton
has some Halloween music, yeah.
Things could have been worse for Kid. He could have been Dorothy or Toto.
That's what I was. That's originally when I started reading this. I was like, is he going to say he went as Dorothy? I was like, because if that had been the case, I know he wouldn't willingly give me the picture, but I would just go to his dad, who's a member of my motorcycle club, and then get it that way. Anyway, he goes on to say that he says that he doesn't think there's a ton of Halloween music options, but he says that he kind of feels that there's not a lot of options for Christmas. A lot of the Christmas music is just done by other new people over and over again. There's not a lot of new Christmas songs.
Yeah. I was going to say there's a lot of.
I was like, there's a lot of. You're right. There's a lot of Christmas music, but there's not a lot of like new Christmas songs that come out every year. It's pretty much the same Christmas music we've had for like the last 40 years.
That's true, except I feel like that's true except in the country genre.
Right.
To buy these shoes from a
mom real bad who's going to meet the Jesus.
Going to meet the Jesus. And I'm getting on the Google tonight.
Caleb says, lastly, just finished Stranger Things Season 2.
Oh, dang.
And holy crap. He says, so good. What did the two of you think? If you finished, that is.
Oh, so is that a challenge?
I don't think it's a challenge, but here's the thing.
I take that challenge.
I haven't started Stranger Things Season 2 because I've been here all weekend, and it released the weekend I'm here, and I'm running around, and I'm going to musicals, and I'm going to reunions, and I'm seeing grave sites, and I'm visiting family and friends.
You make time for that. Priorities, brother.
Okay,
Priorities.
Well, here's the thing, though, Steve. I think we should talk about this because we were talking about this a little earlier.
Yeah.
We're kind of contemplating the idea of doing some little micro podcasts.
Yep.
where we talk for just maybe like 10 minutes or maybe even like 12 minutes, and we kind of recap an episode or two at a time, and releasing these little micro podcasts in between our regular podcast, so we can kind of like talk about Stranger Things. Because I feel like we could easily probably fill up a couple podcasts, probably just on Stranger Things alone.
Yeah.
But we've kind of decided we don't want to do like the next 3 weeks leading up to our 1-year anniversary of just nothing but Stranger Things.
That's right. This is kind of like releasing the pressure so that we don't dominate the normal podcast with just Stranger Things stuff if you're not interested. So I think that's a great idea. And I think there's going to be surely enough fodder to talk about. And I think we should do it kind of real time. So, I don't know what you guys at home think, but we've talked about a little bit that if we were to watch some episodes, and this is obviously going to happen over the next few, call it, 5 to 7 days.
Right. And the next week, maybe week and a half.
7 days. Yeah. So we watch these, and then we real time would just hop right on the hop on the mic and just review kind of straight after we watch the show.
Right.
So,
and then just release it like that early that next morning, and
Yep.
and it'll be out there, and you can watch an episode or two, and then you can listen to our take on it, and then you can watch another episode or two of Stranger Things, and then listen to our take on it. And just kind of like little, like I said, little sidekick podcasts.
Yeah.
They're not the main hero. That's the Fortress of Nerditude, the full podcast.
Right.
But it's the sidekick.
little side hustle.
Yeah, a little side hustle, a little sidekick podcast.
Yeah, this is the boy wonder to our Batman's podcast.
Right. So you're saying that it's going to be weirdly, like submissive?
It's going to be an orphan podcast.
Right.
Wear flesh-colored tights. It's going to be weird.
Right.
No, it should be fun though. Should be fun.
Fun.
So Caleb, I have no doubt whatsoever the Duffer Brothers delivered 110%, and I cannot wait to share in your awe. I'm actually very excited to possibly hit it tonight.
Right.
What do you say, Spence? It's only midnight.
It's only midnight. We've got time.
It's 8 p.m. somewhere.
Right. Somewhere else.
Right.
Where people have lots of energy still. Moving over to Twitter, Brett T. Bodden at Hoptongar.
Is this the first time Brett's writing in? I've never heard his handle before.
I think this is the first time that Brett has written into the show.
And say his handle again.
At Hoptongar.
Hoptongar. What's up, Brett?
Brett says, Steve Bartman. I wore a Cubs jersey, a hat, black headphones, and chains symbolizing hell. He says, sorry, Steve, the curse is lifted. He says, hashtag not your fault. And the funny thing is, he couldn't find a picture of him in the Steve Bartman costume, so he sent me a picture of him running a marathon in a tutu. So I really hope that Brett will let us repost that, because that would be a lot of fun. John at Sir John 11 says, Casper the Friendly Ghost as a young child.
How young? We're talking ninth grade?
I don't know. There's no more details, so we can filter in our own imaginations there. I mean, he says as a young child, going as Casper the Friendly Ghost in like a junior in high school when you're like 17, that would be a little embarrassing, maybe.
That would be like, hey, Poltergeist, we'll see you at the bike rack on the parking lot.
Right. You just put a sheet over your head and cut out 2 eye holes.
Let's see if my fist goes through you.
Right. My brother, Josh Stapleton at MTTG Street Team, says, the Michael Jackson costume. Parading around the elementary school that day, I learned a certain 3-letter F word. I was called it repeatedly.
And still is. No, I'm kidding. No, it's funny because when we were talking about that last week, about a week before last week's podcast, I was watching some Key and Peele, and there's this one where one of them is having a Halloween party, and then the other one comes, it's Michael Jackson. So he opens the door, and it's Michael, but he just like keeps doing dance moves, and he's like, "Hey, just come on in." He's like, "Hee, Shimon." He's like, "What are you doing? Just come on in, man." And finally, he like, "Just stop it, man! Just stop it!" And like he takes off the sunglasses. And he's like, "Tear." And he like slams the door. It's hilarious, Josh. You should watch it.
Yeah,
might bring back memories.
Grouchy Surge at backlog_blue says, I'm sorry, what is this embarrassment thing you speak of? Apparently he's not embarrassed. And then, of course, Paul Calico at Paul Calico 84 says,
what up, Paul?
I got nothing. I haven't dressed up in a long time. So, apparently, maybe not all kids were embarrassed by certain costumes they wore.
Maybe. I don't know.
Huh.
Well, cool. Well, Paul, Grouchy, thanks for chiming in, man.
Guys, we once again, we really appreciate you always coming in and answering our question of the week. We appreciate the interaction. You can always reach us on Twitter at ForwardOfNerd or Facebook, which is facebook.com/ForwardOfNerd. Or if you need to go long form, you can always reach us on the Gmail, that old email, which is forwardofnerd@gmail.com. Steve, Super Friends are coming out in droves. They're always here for us. They like to hang out with us and kick up their feet and relax. How can our Super Friends give us a hand in finding more Super Friends so we can make sure that the Fortress of Nerditude is always packed with friends?
They can rate us on iTunes. They can get some cookies.
Oh, yes.
And find a statue of Cap Streeter.
So just a reminder, as Steve has said this, leading up to our 1-year anniversary, episode 52, which is only 3 weeks away now.
Yeah.
If you rate us on iTunes and then
provide us with your address.
Provide us with your address through the email, which is forwardofnerd@gmail.com. Steve is going to be baking cookies for all those that do.
Now, if I get like 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, I would be very ticked off.
Right.
The feds breaking through my window and be like, he's mailing bombs to the president.
You're like, it's just snickerdoodles, I promise.
Exactly. They tasted like crap.
I believe we're up to 3 now. So 3 individuals have come forward, have reviewed us on iTunes, and sent us their address.
Is one of them you? I am not baking you cookies, man. You bum.
I should have done that. That would have been great. Yeah, it's 4. It's 4 now, I promise.
Well, you did bake me a deep dish pizza, so.
That is true.
Something.
It would be a little weird, though, if I reviewed the podcast.
What kind of cookies do you think Trump likes?
President Trump? What kind of cookies he likes?
Yeah.
I'm going to say he's probably a chocolate chip cookie man.
You think so?
Yeah, and
I think more like a Milano.
His address is beep 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 beep. Surprisingly, the address I just gave you for President Trump, I think those cookies are going to get redirected to me somehow.
Right? It sounded exactly like the same address you gave for Peter Christensen, actually.
Right.
If I know my Morse code, if it's up to snuff.
That's too funny. So, Steve, I got something a little different than we usually do, because usually we answer questions and then we talk about something.
Yeah.
But we had a listener that wrote us in a question who wants our help with something. And so I thought we could talk about this right now amongst some other things. But our friend Bryce Jolly sent me an email this week, and he wanted to get our take on something that he's looking at.
Okay.
So let me read this to you, and then we can discuss it, and we can tell him what we think. He says, "Hey guys, I haven't listened to your podcast in a few episodes. I know he's been really busy." He says, "But with Christmas coming up and Black Friday, I have a question, mostly for Spencer, but I would love any input you might have, Steve. We would like to get a gaming system for our family. We're deciding between the Wii U and the Switch," so this is Nintendo.
Yep.
It says, "We mostly want to do family games like Mario Kart, the Just Dance, fitness stuff, but we also might like the single-player style games. We see some pros and cons to each system, but wanted to get your opinion. You can refute these or just tell me what you think." So he says, the Wii U, the pros that they see is the cost,
Yeah.
the game cost, and the number of games. But the cons for the Wii U is the availability of a new system, the graphics in comparison to the new system, and the disc format, because the Wii U were on these still kind of CD-based discs. The Switch pros is the graphics, the cartridge format, the foreseeable versatility, the newness of technology, and the ability to log time for the user, kind of like an allowance for the kids, so to speak. He says the cons is the price, the game price, the accessory prices, the smallness of the sticks, the little controllers, the portability ease. We don't want the kids to take this into their bedroom. And it says, basically, what would you advise? Thanks in advance. Hope is well with both of you. All is well with both of us. Thank you for that, Peter. So here's what I think, Steve. You tell me, like, if you were going to buy a video game system, because I think this would be kind of an appropriate comparison. They're looking to get a video game system. If you were to get a video game system for your kids right now, and you're trying to decide between the Nintendo Wii U, which has been around for a few years, it's not the current active console any longer, and you could find it for cheaper, and you could find games cheaper. Is that something you're going to gravitate towards, or would you rather gravitate towards what's new and being currently supported by Nintendo that's going to have all the new games coming out for it?
So here is what I think. So as someone who, as you mentioned earlier in the podcast, still has a cadre of VHS movies,
Right.
definitely not an early adopter. I mean, obviously we do have Blu-ray and we do have Netflix and all that jazz, but we still keep some of the oldies around as well. You would think that I would say, oh, the Wii U, you get it cheaper, you get all these games, which I think that is something to take into consideration. I mean, the cost alone, I think you could probably get a Wii U for like $170, I think I saw on eBay. And the games obviously are plentiful and probably cheap now that, they've got the new system coming out. You do have things like Mario Kart 8, you've got, Super Mario Bros. 3D World, you've got, Nintendo Land, you got all these. But I think that, I've played the Wii U, and I didn't love the playability. Now, I didn't play obviously a ton of games. I played 2 or 3 different kind of demo games. I wasn't really impressed on those 3 or 4 games that I played with just the general playability. I tried some of the exercise games as
Right.
well, and they were just okay. It wasn't like I was like, wow, this is really something I do a lot. I couldn't foresee myself doing that. So I think that, in short answer, and I know that you're going to obviously elaborate on this, I think I probably would go with the Switch. I think I would go with the Switch just based on, again, some of the reviews you've given. Now, I don't know how young Bryce's kids are. He may have mentioned that in the
He didn't in the email, but
comments.
My recollection is that her kids probably... I'm going to take a guess here.
6?
Yeah, my guess is their kids are probably 6 or under.
Okay. Yeah.
Maybe like right around that age.
Okay.
6, 7, or a little under.
I mean, so if you're thinking that there may still be a few years before they can truly enjoy games, obviously like Zelda and
Right.
like Mario, because there's a little bit more complexity to the actual gameplay. But it sounds like Splatoon and things like that might still be fun for them. I mean,
Sure.
based on I know you said Jackson. You give him a controller and he spends 30 minutes in a corner just kind of walking and
Right.
spraying buildings.
Right.
But what do you think, Charlie? Do you think he can still have fun with Splatoon?
Charlie plays Mario Kart.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so
and Charlie's going to be turning 5 in the middle of December. So he plays Mario Kart. The nice thing about the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, which is the Switch version, because Mario Kart 8 was on the Wii U.
Right.
And eventually it came out with like some DLC, some extra tracks and other things that you had to pay for. But if you buy the Switch version, which is Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, it comes with all of those extra tracks and whatnot. They have a mode that you can turn on that's called like Drive Assist. And so like it's kind of like
that's on the Switch.
on the Switch. Yeah, it's kind of like bumper bowling. Right? You can throw the ball down the lane and it's not going to go into the gutter. It's going to kind of bounce back and kind of try to stay somewhere in the middle. And you can turn that on. And when we turn that on, which really helps Charlie, he does really well. I mean, he's not, perfect, but I mean, he can control and he can keep, he can keep the gas button pushed down and he can win races. And he's like 5. So,
yeah.
I think the age is fine for the Nintendo Switch and for the games they were talking about playing, which is Mario Kart's one of them. They also talked about like the dance games, which I think are fine. Kind of like the kind of like family party games and maybe some of the other games. I'm going to agree with you on the Switch, and my reasoning is, I think it's just pretty straightforward. You might be able to save a little bit of money getting the Wii U. But the Wii U was not a smashing success for Nintendo. And so they didn't get a lot of third-party games for the Wii U. So it was basically just the Nintendo games are going to be the better games on that platform. The even though my brother disagrees with me, I think the internet agrees with me that the tablet that you held, it was kind of the controller for the Wii U, felt a little big and clunky.
Yep.
And it was like this 2-screen kind of thing where their games were like on the TV and then they were also on the tablet. And so you had to like try to, where are you looking, what's going on. And I know that didn't get reviewed very well. So while you may be able to save some money, it's not the current system. It's not going to be supported. It's not going to be the system that's going to be the future of what's happening. And I'm always a fan of, if you're going to jump into getting a video game system, you start with the current generation. You don't go back a generation, even if they've just barely made the transition. You go forward. That may mean you have a lack of games for a little while, but typically you're going to start getting a good slew of games. Now, the Nintendo Switch obviously is going to be a little more money because it is brand new. And the accessories like extra controllers and stuff are expensive. However,
right.
The nice thing, and to Bryce's point, and question, is that they think the little controllers you can slide off, the little Joy-Cons you can slide off the Switch, are too small. I hold them in my hands, and I've gotten used to them. And I got pretty big hands, and it does come with like this little like grip extender that you can kind of put on each Joy-Con to hold, which makes it feel even better. Plus it also comes with like a little, kind of like a little handheld dock you can put the Joy-Cons into and play to get a more traditional controller feel that comes with this system. And so I think that's a concern that you can overcome.
Well, let me ask this, because and again, I have not played the Switch, but everything that I've seen, they look so small and dainty. I mean, the Joy-Con controllers, they look so small, and I wonder, for someone like Bryce or people like him that have younger kids, is there a concern with durability? Is there a concern, whereas, like we have a Wii, we have an original Wii, man, you can chuck those things all over the place. I mean, they're just really solidly built, they're durable, and they just seem more hefty than the Joy-Con controllers.
So that's true, but it's also, that's, 2 generations back for Nintendo. So weight, we should look at weight differently now than we used to. Like, you used to pick up something and like, you're like, oh, this has got a weight to it. And so you assume that meant it was made with quality parts and that it was durable and it was going to last forever. That's not really the case anymore, because we use, different technologies and different kinds of plastics now that are just as durable, but they're significantly lighter. So they're not as heavy, and they're more comfortable and easier to hold and play with for longer stretches of time. I'll tell you, I've taken the Joy-Cons off my Switch, and I've played just with the Joy-Cons. I give the kids just, each a Joy-Con to play Mario Kart, and they hold it and they mash on the buttons, and there's no problem.
I mean, I guess part of that as well is in our conversation when you originally got the Switch. There was the dock was a little bit tweaked out of thing, and you scratched your screen. It just seems like there are some delicacies with the system itself that maybe you wouldn't have with an older system that has just different functionality, just literal different nuts and bolts, functionality.
Sure, but most of the issue I had with my scratch screen, a very, very small percentage of people had that, like very small percentage. I just happened to be unfortunately lucky in that regard. Nintendo made good on that. They took care of that, and they got me a new dock, and they replaced my screen. So, Nintendo took care of that. But you're not hearing, and they're producing more Switches all the time. We're not hearing instances or stories anymore of any of that kind of stuff. So Nintendo's kind of worked out the bugs a little bit on that. I think it's a really robust system that's going to be able to endure a little bit of rough and tumble. As to his concern about kids, I think the Switch is perfect for kids, and probably perfect for kids in his age group. The concern about the kids walking off and taking the Switch into the bedroom, the idea of like trying to monitor time and whatnot. Here's the nice thing. The Switch has a companion app that you can download as a parent that you can monitor times for when the Switch is being used, and you can see which profile logged in and how long they played, and you can get a notification even when you start playing. So if your kid starts playing it and they're not supposed to be, you could call them out on it.
Can you set it to shock them when they're playing it? Like if they hit a certain threshold, almost like an invisible collar?
I don't think so, but that would be a cool feature, right? Yeah.
Just like buzz them a little bit. Go, go.
So I think Nintendo is being smart and proactive in that respect, trying to find a parental app with some controls so that parents can monitor their kids' activity, because they understand that this is going to be even easier than past systems that typically had to be tied to a TV. It could easily disappear. The kid could go into the bathroom for 45 minutes and, play a bunch of Mario Kart when they're supposed to be in there brushing their teeth.
And nobody wants a 6-year-old with hemorrhoids.
No. Do you get hemorrhoids when you brush your teeth, usually, Steve?
Oh, when you're sitting on the toilet playing the Switch for 45 minutes, yeah, you probably would.
So, and I understand that, and I think that is a valid concern. But they have provided an app that you can use. I think you also can set limits on the device itself.
So I would say, I mean, with that in mind, and with the upgraded, processing,
better graphics.
I mean, it's faster. And it's really going to be the future. Then, if you're going to make an investment, why not make an investment in the latest and greatest?
And more games are constantly going to be released, and your kids would be able to get the newest stuff. So, my recommendation sounds like, and Steve's recommendation also, is to go get a Nintendo Switch. On the cost issue, the cost of the games for the Nintendo Switch are pretty much the cost of the games if you were to get current Xbox or current PlayStation games. They're right on par. Some of them are even a little cheaper. So just kind of be prepared that if you're going to be getting a video game system, about $60 is the cost of a game. Sometimes you can get a little cheaper, and then definitely like independent games are usually a lot cheaper. But any like big game like a Mario or a Zelda or Smash Brothers or Mario Kart, it's going to be about $60. So just kind of plan on that and kind of know that. And then my other advice is this, especially with Christmas coming up. Hit up the in-laws, hit up the grandparents, say, we're thinking about doing this. We'd like you to chip in and see if they're willing to do that. If so, you can drastically reduce the cost out of your own pocket, and your kids are going to love it, and they're going to be able to thank everyone, and you make it easy peasy, lemon squeezy.
Yeah, and I think most grandparents, at least mine, are always like, what can I get for your kids? What do you, they always want ideas. I'm like, I have no idea. I don't even know what to get them. How do I know what you should get them?
Right.
So if you can already just say, hey, chip in for this, and it'll all be a group gift, and that's right. Easy for everybody.
So that's my recommendations. Go get it, Bryce. Go get a Nintendo Switch. I think you'll be happy with it in the end.
Yep. And when you do, give us a call. And if your screen is scratched, you call Spence.
And I'll point you directly to the Nintendo helpline. Steve, I was thinking about portability. I actually, like I said, I was thinking about bringing my Nintendo Switch with me this weekend. Because typically, like if I travel or I'm going to be gone for something, like I'm going to be sitting in an airport or I'm going to be stuck in a hotel for a while, I want to be able to play a video game, or, sometimes I'll listen to like an audiobook or listen to music. When you travel, do you do much of that? Like, do you take games with you, or do you do like Sudoku or the crossword, or do you listen to music or podcasts, or what do you do?
It depends on if I'm traveling for vacation. We're talking about
sure.
Because
work vacation. Anytime you're traveling.
I've always got my computer on me. But when I travel for vacation, I still take my computer with me, because there are times when I have to be able to have access to a computer to be able to do some work, or to check on things, or to at least delegate some things. So yeah, I'm a guy that takes it, but takes it begrudgingly. Like it's not something, if I'm going on vacation, I want to have a vacation, and that really includes, if I had a Switch, I probably would not take it on vacation. If I'm going to Cancun or Hawaii or a road trip or Europe or whatever, like I'm there to see the sights there. I'm there to experience. And so I have a very kind of a separation of church and state when it comes to that. That I really like to kind of compartmentalize and kind of focus on one thing at a time. But I do. I mean, I listen to some podcasts on my phone as I'm traveling. Like if we're on a plane and there's nothing else that I'm actively doing, if I'm not reading a book, because that's, it's funny, because on a plane, it's like the one time in my life that's still like this like sacred time, right? That there's nothing else. You can't do anything else. You can't go anywhere else. And so I do a lot of reading on planes, and it's almost like a flying library?
I watch movies on planes a lot.
Do you? On what? On your laptop or on what?
On my laptop, but like, sometimes they have the movies you can like just watch on the planes. Like we flew Delta out here and you could pick from a whole bunch of free movies. And so I watched actually the Baywatch movie that we talked about forever ago because they had it on there. And
did you feel any kind of just like hesitation with like your neighbor,
no,
passenger sitting next to you, being like,
no, because my neighbor was Brita.
Okay,
and so I was like, she's not going to care if I watch this. And I watched the Baywatch movie, and it was, I mean, there was some language in it. There was some language in it for sure, and maybe it was also partially edited because it's an airplane movie. Because I think they'll do some special edits, to things. But like, and I'm gonna have to talk to someone who's actually seen it not on an airplane. But I was like, this didn't have. I mean, besides language, which definitely there was language, but like besides language, there wasn't anything that stuck out to me of like this is a really like rough movie or anything. But I also realized it only had maybe like 2 or 3 laughs.
Yeah, that's
only 2 or 3 laughs, and I was like, oh, that's kind of a shame. Like, I would have figured there would have been a lot of like tongue-in-cheek, kind of like meta humor, jokes in there. Instead, it just kind of didn't have it. So I like to watch movies. Brita watched a movie on a plane, but you're a book guy on planes?
I'm a book guy or a podcast guy. I love to be able to just kind of close my eyes and just lose myself and listen. So yeah. But again, watching a movie on a plane, if I'm watching on the screen, either on the back of my chair or, 3 rows ahead of me,
right.
It's just like I'm trying to look at a 4-inch screen, like, squinting at it, and there's the plane roaring next to me. And it's just, I miss out on some of that. And I don't need like a movie theater experience.
But there's subtleties that you miss.
Yeah, there's subtleties. I like when we start watching Stranger Things, like I don't want to be, a lot of times my wife will like fold laundry while we watch. I'm like, no. If I'm going to watch this,
you want to experience it.
I want to experience this. I don't want to like do like 7 different things while I'm doing this. Yeah, I can watch the morning news while I run on the treadmill, but when I'm watching a entertainment show, I want to be fully engrossed.
Right.
So, and that kind of goes with a lot of kind of electronics and just tech while I'm traveling. I try to keep it to a minimum.
See, for me, because I have a Nintendo Switch, I totally wanted to bring it with me this time. Mm-hmm. Because usually if I travel, like I realize if I'm on a plane, I got a couple hours to kill. So I can play some video games, or I can, watch something on my phone, or listen to an audiobook, or listen to podcasts. But then it's always like I go somewhere, especially like if I'm flying somewhere and I've got a layover, like I've got to sit 6 hours in an airport, dude. Being able to pull out a video game system and just be able to knock out a few hours on a game that you're currently playing. And with a Nintendo Switch, the idea of being able to, and I've done this, take the game from its docked state where I'm playing it on the TV to then pulling it out of the dock and then taking it with me into the bathroom and continuing to play and then going back and redocking it and picking back up. Like, that's awesome. I'm not going to lie. That is awesome.
You sterilize it after you're done, right?
Of course.
Okay, just making sure.
Of course, yes.
Wipe or something.
But being able to like sit in an airport on a 6-hour layover and have something to do, like I love that. That's great. Like I definitely think that's a huge advantage that this Switch has.
Yep.
However, then it's like the question of, okay, well, now what do I do when I'm in the hotel room at night? That's typically where I will play it too. Like if it's just me, or if it's like me and Brita, like if she falls asleep and I'm still awake, I'll play that. And I would find time, but like this trip, I didn't actually bring it, and I was kind of debating back and forth. It's like, well, maybe I'll have some time, but man, I've just been running and doing stuff and go, that I'm glad I didn't bring it this time, because it would have just sat in my bag and I never would have used it. But like when we go to Disneyland with the kids, it's like we get up in the morning and it's just go. But then typically by like 8 o'clock at night, like this last time we went with Brita's whole family. By like 8 o'clock at night, the kids are worn out. It's their bedtime. We come back, we put them to bed, and like we actually would take her brother and sister-in-law's kids back with us and put them to bed as well and let them have kind of a late night at Disney. Mm-hmm. And Brita's like, I'm tired. I'm just going to kind of go to bed. And I was like, man, it's 8:30.
Right.
I've still got a couple hours left.
I'm in the happiest place in the world.
So pulling out a video game system is like, that's a great opportunity. I'm on vacation, yes, but I've got time where I can't really do anything while I'm on vacation. So it's, listen to a book, watch a movie, or play a video game. So like for me, like that's how I justify the bringing something like that along with me.
You ever heard of Pleasure Island? Yeah, it's Disney World.
Disney World? Okay.
Yeah.
But, it doesn't work in all situations. Like this weekend, I've done something till super late hours of early hours of the morning every single night that I've been here.
Right.
So I wouldn't have played it once, which is kind of interesting because Super Mario Odyssey released this weekend, and I haven't picked it up yet just because I knew I wasn't going to play it.
Well, and there are obviously different, vacations with different dynamics because
Sure.
of who you're with and if you're with your kids or whatever. But, I would hope that, not to say that you couldn't do this while you're out, but playing a video game or whatnot, I guess in my life, it has its place and its purpose. The fact that it's portable is awesome. You can take it with you to fill some of those gaps. But it's kind of cool that, you've been here for 4 or 5 days and like literally have packed every minute of every second that you haven't had downtime to be able to need to fill, which is, right. I think, kind of a good definition of a vacation. But of course, there are all those other vacations where like I want to lay on a beach for 3 days, 5 days
right.
a week.
Or if you go on a cruise, it's like you can't. I've never been on a cruise. You've been on cruises.
I've been lots of cruises.
You can't tell me that you don't have downtime on a cruise where it's like, okay, we've got 6 hours till we get to the next island, and I've eaten all I can eat at a buffet, and I don't want to go swim at the pool. What do you do?
You go to shows. There's gyms. Rock climbing, water slides, surfing.
See, to me, I'm like rock climbing, water slides. Like if I feel like I've done those like a number of times.
Yeah, there definitely
like
is.
That's for me. Then it's like, okay, this sounds like if everyone else is doing their own thing,
oh yeah,
I'm gonna put in a couple more hours on Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild, and do that. But like I said, I think it's something like you have to decide, like, do you want to try to squeeze in a little bit of gaming around this and that? I didn't bring it this time because I knew that I was gonna pack in, because I'm flying back home to my hometown that I haven't been to in 20 years. I'm bringing my wife, and she's never been here. And I knew we were going to go see a musical, and we're going to spend time with your family, and I'm going to go to my reunion, and we're going to go to Pumpkin Fest and go to the hometown, and, we're going to be doing some driving. And I just knew there was no way I was going to be able to do it. Now, that being said, we have watched 3 episodes of Friends on Netflix.
That's right.
Because, it's 2 a.m, and you're back from a reunion, and
what else are you going to do?
You're tired, but you still need to decompress and just relax a little bit and just kind of let everything go. I turned on the old Netflix on my laptop that I have with me at all times and watched an episode of Friends and then fell asleep at 3 a.m.
Well, that's the beauty of entertainment. I mean, that's really what it's there for, right? It's there to entertain, to soothe,
and to lull me asleep.
To lull you to sleep to Chandler's dulcet tones.
Yes.
Well, that's cool, and it's interesting to see how people use media, how people use technology, and when and where and how they use it. So. I wonder if that's going to play into maybe a question of the week this week.
I'm curious because, I'm on vacation right now, and we were, talking about Bryce Jolly's situation, about the idea of, the Switch being a portable gaming system, and his worry about, the kids' time on it, and, being able to kind of like go run off to the bathroom or to their bedroom and hide with it, you don't want to be the father just like looking for your kids, like, where are you? And you find your kid like in a closet somewhere because he's trying to squeeze in 3 minutes on, Smash Brothers or, Mario Kart. So I want to know what our super friends think. Like if you're going on vacation, do you take entertainment with you, or do you just rely on the vacation you're going on being your source of entertainment the entire time? Let us know. Let us know on the old Twitter, which is @ForwardOfNerd, on Facebook, facebook.com/ForwardOfNerd, or on the old email, which is forwardofnerd@gmail.com. And we will read your answers next week. And remind you that if you review us on iTunes and you email us your address, Steve is making cookies, and he is a man of his word and is going to come through.
You had to add that part in.
Of course I have to add that part in.
Yes, and just make sure your address isn't done in Morse code, because I'm a little rusty. Might go to somebody else's address. So thank you again for listening, for commentary, for joining us in the Fortress of Nerditude. It is always good to be with you, and we love being with you. We love broadcasting from the one of the greatest cities in the world, that is Chicago, Illinois. And remember, if for any reason, you're not completely satisfied with today's program, simply mail us a $50 check and we will gladly refund half your money.
Right.
With that, may the force be with you.
You ready to do this, Steve?
Let's do it, Spence. Punch it, Chewie.
Welcome, super friends, to the Fortress of Nerditude podcast, a safe place to talk about all things in nerd and pop culture. I'm Spencer Stapleton, and my co-pilot, as always, is Steve Badura.
Where you been all my life?
Right here, big guy. We're two best friends that, despite being fathers and husbands, we just refuse to grow up. Thank you for joining us. This is episode 49. We release every Thursday morning. It's on iTunes, Google Music, and Stitcher, and we are coming from a location unknown, aka Steve's basement.
Booyah, baby. This is our live show, our first live show together in one room in an unknown bunker in my basement.
That's true. It's kind of interesting, Steve. Like, we've done 48 other episodes, and in the 48 episodes we've done previous to this, it's always like through the magic of the internet and, telecoms are connecting
Fiber
up and